One moment can shake an entire nation. Join us to uncover what happened when Jasmine Crockett dropped a bombshell that detonated everything. Asterisk, asterisk. In just 47 seconds, Jasmine Crockett sent shockwaves through the chamber with a Victoria's Secret. A single USB exposed Donald Trump laughing alongside Jeffrey Epstein, surrounded by young girls and footage buried. For 23 long years, the air grew heavy, the crowd froze, and a woman screamed that, "It's my sister." What in that tape was so explosive, it made Trump tremble on live national television? Let's find out. The red tally light on the C-SPAN camera blinked once, then locked into a cold, unrelenting stare, live unedited, merciless. Just one room, one USB, and one woman who refused to stay silent. Jasmine Crockett stepped out of the black SUV, as if not heading to Congress but charging into battle. Her navy suit sliced through the morning fog like a sharp blade. Her face didn't waver even as reporters swarmed. "Congresswoman, is it true? You have the Epstein tape," one shouted. Another leaned closer. Voice low, desperate. "Is Trump really in it?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Across the street, the CNN broadcast fan hummed with tension. Inside, a producer whispered into a headset that, "She brought it. It's real. Get ready." The rumor started with a leak from inside the DOJ, an unsealed file, a flash drive recovered from a long-forgotten bankruptcy court record. But it wasn't the file. It was what was in the footage. And who, in room 316, the Oversight Committee chamber, looked like any other Capitol Hill morning. Polished wood American flags, rows of microphones, but the air was thick, as if the space itself held its breath. Mics were hot. Chairs creaked under. The weight of big names. Trump sat center, flanked by rapper Marjorie Taylor Greene on his right and Jim Jordan on his left. Both whispered, watching Jasmine like predators eyeing cornered prey. But Jasmine wasn't cornered. In her right hand, a sleek silver USB. No label, no color, just smooth metal, and a truth sharp enough to cut through decades of lies. Her team followed in tight formation, eyes forward. They knew what the world didn't. They'd seen it, all 97 seconds of it. They'd watched in a silent hotel room the night before, as Epstein and Trump laughed on camera, surrounded by girls who looked like high schoolers with angel wings. And now, America was about to see. Crockett moved to her seat like a clock striking its final hour. Each step echoed, each footfall measured as if counting the distance to history. Trump didn't look at her, but his jaw twitched. Giving him away, Greene leaned in and hissed that, "She's just bluffing. She wouldn't dare." Trump's lips barely moved, but Jasmine caught it. He muttered two words, "She won't." But she would, and she'd waited years. For this, she sat slowly, carefully, her hand resting on the USB like an artifact, not of evidence but of justice. Outside, the crowd grew. Staffers pressed protesters with signs that read, "You knew." One held a poster of a girl in a white dress, a black bar over her eyes. The caption below read, "Epstein's Angels." Inside, the chairman banged the gavel once. "This hearing is now in session." Jasmine didn't look up. She looked at the camera, then, still calm, still silent, whispered to no one and everyone that, "Let's see what they tried to bury. What truth makes a man like Trump sweat in silence? What turns an ordinary hearing into a historic battle? Keep watching." Asterisk, asterisk. The chairman banged the gavel, and silence returned. Tense, deliberate, the chairman adjusted his glasses, called the name like just another line on the docket. "Mr. Donald J. Trump, you may begin." Trump leaned forward, hands clasped like a man about to deliver a monologue, not a defense. He didn't speak right away. He smiled first, that crooked, smug smile he'd worn for decades. The smile of a man who thought charm could erase history. Then he turned to Jasmine Crockett and let loose. "She's a puppet," he said, waving a hand lazily her way like swatting a fly. "A woke puppet with no credentials, no clue. Just a mouthpiece for the media." Laughter erupted from the far right corner of the chamber. Marjorie Taylor Greene laughed loudest. Jim Jordan smirked but kept his eyes locked on Jasmine. Somewhere in the gallery, A Fox News cameraman zoomed in on Trump's grin. The moment was theater, ugly, deliberate theater. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't blink. She stared straight ahead, as if seeing through him. Trump leaned back, arms spread like a king on a throne. I've built towers. She builds hashtags. I've negotiated peace deals. She negotiates retweets. We're not in the same league, folks. Laughter rippled. Cameras flashed. Green leaned in, sharp and low. She's not qualified. She's lucky to be here. Jasmine turned slowly, precisely. Her expression didn't change, but the air did. She heard it, logged it, filed it, where all underestimations go. The chairman cleared his throat. Miss Crockett, would you like to respond? She didn't rise yet. Just brushed the silver USB with her fingers like a loaded trigger. Yes, she said. The chamber stiffened. Even green. Felt it. Trump turned half in his chair, eyebrows raised. Daring her to speak out of line, Jasmine stood. She looked first at the chairman, then the cameras, then finally at Trump. I've been called worse, she said, voice calm as iron. But I wasn't invited here to trade insults. I was elected to tell the truth whether you like it sound or not. No applause, no outbursts, just stillness, sharp and heavy. Jasmine reached into her folder and pulled a document. Not the USB, not yet. The anticipation grew like a fuse. Everyone felt it. Something was coming. But she made them wait. I will respond, she added, but not with slogans. Not with slogans wrapped in smirks. I'll respond with truth. Do you remember what that is, Mr. Trump? A few gasps. One or two chuckles from her side. Even Jordan's smirk faltered. Trump's face twitched just enough. She sat back down. No USB, no reveal. Just silence. Controlled, sharpened silence. The kind that makes liars sweat. If silence is Jasmine's weapon, what's she waiting for? Asterisk, asterisk. But before the tension could peak, a whisper from the back row hinted at something even more damning. What if there was more than one tape? Asterisk, asterisk. As the chamber hung in that sharpened silence, a low murmur rippled from the gallery. Eyes darted toward a shadowy figure, slipping in late a former aide to Epstein himself, clutching a briefcase that seemed too heavy for papers. Alone, Jasmine's gaze flickered toward him for a split second, a knowing glint in her eye that no one else caught. She wasn't just holding one USB. Her team had been digging deeper, unearthing whispers of a second recording, one that captured not just laughter, but whispered deals in the dim corners of that Victoria's Secret suite. The aide, pale and sweating, had contacted her office anonymously the night before, promising evidence that would link Trump not only to the party but to the funding behind Epstein's twisted empire. But Jasmine held back, letting the first blow land, building the drama like a master storyteller. The room didn't know it yet, but this hearing was about to unravel layers of deception that went beyond one night of debauchery. And in that charged moment, Jasmine's aide passed her a note. The second tape was ready, but playing it now could trigger a security breach. Someone in the room was signaling Trump's team. Who was the traitor among the second? Them. The note, scribbled hastily, warned of a mole, perhaps a staffer, or even a fellow congressman who had been leaking Jasmine's moves to Trump's camp. Her heart raced, but she crumpled the paper without reaction. Her mind, calculating the risk of revealing the audio too soon. If she played it, it could expose the traitor, but it might also escalate the threats outside where anonymous figures waited in the shadows. The tension built like a storm, every glance in the room loaded with suspicion. What in that footage could change everything forever? Don't look away. Asterisk. Asterisk. The screen crackled back to life. Static shimmered for half a second before the frame locked in. Grainy, dim, but unmistakably real. The camera angle tilted as if hidden behind a speaker or champagne tower, but the faces it caught were clear enough to burn. Jeffrey Epstein entered first in a pale cream jacket, a glass of champagne already in hand. He grinned with the confidence of a man who thought the world owed him its daughters. Behind him came Donald Trump, younger, thinner, but unmistakable. Tie loose drink in his right hand, left resting casually on the back of a young woman's chair. Melania stood beside him, expression unreadable. She glanced at the camera once, then away. Not surprise, but calculation. The lounge was dim lit by gold chandeliers and pink uplights. A banner hung in the corner, Victoria's Secret Private Suite, invite only. Soft jazz muffled through velvet drapes. Trump sat next to Epstein, shoulders nearly touching. They laughed, loud, brash. Familiar. Not two men meeting for the first time, two men who'd done this before. Then she appeared, the girl, long brown hair, white dress heels too high for her age. She couldn't be older than 18, probably. Younger. She sat on Epstein's lap, smiling awkwardly, sipping something clear from a flute. Trump leaned in, whispered directly in her ear. She laughed nervously. On the chamber floor, Stafford dropped her pen. Green looked away. Jim Jordan clenched his jaw. The video kept playing. Trump raised his glass, looked straight at the camera, waved like hosting a fundraiser. They're younger this time, he said, audible through the static. Epstein chuckled beside him, replying that, much younger? Gasps rippled across the room. An aide stood abruptly, face pale, hand to mouth. Another murmured that, oh my God. The chairman leaned forward, lips parted, but no words came. Even the media team in the back froze. No one knew whether to pause the video or let it run. Trump, seated feet from the screen, said nothing, his eyes locked on his own face from 26 years ago. The smile, the voice, the drink, it was him. No room for denial, no lighting trick, no AI claim, no spin. Jasmine stayed silent, hands folded, breath steady. She didn't look at the footage anymore. She looked at the people watching themselves watch it, realizing what they'd enabled. The girl stood from Epstein's lap, unsteady. Trump placed his hand on her back to guide her away, palm pressed too low, lingering too long. She walked out of frame. Trump and Epstein clinked glasses. The screen glitched. The footage jumped a few frames, froze on one final shot. Epstein and Trump, midlife, surrounded by two young faces and too many secrets. The screen went black, and no one moved. Not staffers, not lawmakers, not press. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene had her head down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. A reporter whispered to another that, this changes everything. Jasmine spoke once. She turned to Trump, still silent, and said, softly, that, you called it fake, but the camera never lies, especially when the liar's in the room. What happens when the lie is recorded and the liar stands right there? Asterisk, asterisk. With the video's impact still reverberating, Jasmine decided to play the audio excerpt, but as the speakers crackled to life, a power surge plunged the room into darkness. Was it sabotage or something more? Sinister. The lights flickered and died, the chamber plunging into chaos as emergency backups kicked in with a hum. Screams echoed from the gallery security, rushing to Jasmine's side as she clutched the USB, her mind racing. The mole had struck tampering with the electrical system to prevent the audio from playing. In the dim glow of phone screens, she spotted a figure slipping out a side door, confirming her suspicions. The hearing paused, but the drama only intensified, with investigators called in on the spot to trace the sabotage back to Trump's desperate inner circle. And as the room reeled from the first tape, Jasmine signaled her aide discreetly. Was there audio hidden in the files capturing words that could topple empires? Asterisk, asterisk. In the stunned silence following the blackout, Jasmine's aide approached with a subtle nod, passing her a small earpiece connected to a hidden device. The USB didn't just hold video. Embedded within was audio tracks captured from a concealed microphone in the suite, revealing snippets of conversation that painted a darker picture, to Trump's voice clear and boastful, discussing deals with Epstein that went beyond parties, hints of financial arrangements, shared contacts in high places, and casual references to keeping things quiet. Jasmine hadn't played it yet, saving it for the perfect moment to amplify the shock, but the mere knowledge of its existence sent a chill through her team. Trump, sensing the shift, shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to his lawyers, as if pleading for an escape route that didn't exist. The explosion didn't come from the speakers, but from Trump himself. Watch how he reacts. Asterisk. Asterisk. The screen stayed black when the eruption came not from speakers but from Trump. He shot up from his seat, face flushed, a shade past red jaw clenched like it might snap. "Fake!" he roared, pointing at the monitor as if it insulted him personally. "That's altered. Deep fake garbage. CNN lies as always." His voice cracked at the edges, louder than the gavel, louder than the room. Aide after aide turned to him, stunned. Cameras caught the sweat on his brow. The way his hand trembled slightly, Green reached to pull him down, but he shook her off. "This is a hit job, a setup. That girl in the tape, I don't know her." Jasmine remained seated, composed. One hand rested on the desk, fingers lightly tapping. The other opened a thin red folder beside her, slow and steady. She pulled a printed document, held it like a courtroom exhibit. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "This is a third-party forensic report," she said, clearly conducted by an independent data integrity lab. She turned to the chairman, then let her gaze fall on Trump. "It confirms the timestamp file hash video encoding and original upload metadata, chain of custody intact, no manipulation, no edits." She handed it to the clerk, who passed it up like a sacred relic. Representative Jaime Raskin leaned into his mic, voice controlled but cold. "This footage was sealed in a bankruptcy court filing in 2001 tied to the Epstein estate, marked confidential until unsealed 2 weeks ago. That's where her team found it. Not CNN, not social media, a federal archive." Trump's attorney sprang to his feet, flustered, breathless. "Objection. That evidence wasn't disclosed before this hearing. We moved to strike it from the record." The chairman raised a brow. "Motion denied. The evidence is admissible under public record." "Statute." The lawyer sat like a man, knowing the foundation was cracking. Trump laughed, but it was brittle. "This is political theater. You're letting some TikTok lawyer smear the President of the United States with grainy club footage. Really?" Jasmine turned to him slowly, like a turret locking on target. "That grainy footage," she said softly, "was enough to make you stand and scream." A few gasped. Others stayed silent, hanging on every syllable. For the first time, it wasn't just Jasmine versus Trump. It was the truth versus the room. And the truth had just taken its first breath. When the evidence breathes, can power still lie? Asterisk, asterisk. But as Trump's outburst echoed, a new figure emerged from the shadows of the gallery, ready to deliver a testimony that would shatter the remaining defenses. Who was this mystery witness? And what secrets did they hold? Amid the chaos of Trump's rage, the chairman called for order. But before the gavel could fall again, the former Epstein aide from the back row stood, his voice quavering but resolute. "I was there that night," he announced, drawing every eye. "In the room, I helped set up the suite, and I saw everything. Not just the laughter, but the promises exchanged in hushed tones. Promises of protection, of mutual benefits that extended far beyond one party." The chamber erupted. In murmurs, cameras zooming in as security hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. Jasmine nodded subtly, her plan unfolding perfectly. This witness wasn't scheduled, but his appearance was no accident. Her team had orchestrated his arrival to maximize the impact, turning the hearing into an unstoppable cascade of revelations. Trump's face drained of color. His lawyers scrambling to object, but the damage was done. The truth was no longer contained to a USB. It was alive, speaking from the gallery. The aide's words hung in the air, but before he could continue, a phone rang in the room. Trump's with a call from an unknown number, whispering warnings. Was the net closing in from all sides? Asterisk. Asterisk. The ringing pierced the tension, Trump's hand fumbling to silence it, but not before a voice leaked through the speaker. "Get out now. They have more." The room froze. Raskin demanding the phone be seized as evidence, while Jasmine's eyes narrowed. This was no coincidence. The call was a desperate attempt to derail the testimony, but it only confirmed the depth of the conspiracy. Security moved in, confiscating the device, turning a simple ring into a pivotal piece of evidence that could lead to charges of obstruction. From the gallery, a raw voice rang out, changing everything. "Who was it?" Asterisk. Asterisk. The air hadn't moved since Jasmine's last sentence, as if oxygen turned to glass. The video was over. The evidence laid bare. Trump had collapsed into silence, slightly hunched, blinking too often. But then before anyone could speak, it came from the gallery, a trembling, raw human voice. "That's my sister," the woman said, rising from the second row, fingers white-knuckled on the bench before her. She was 17. Her voice broke halfway through 17, and the sound sliced through the walls, the wood, every last veil of denial in the room. Gasps followed, chairs shifted. An aide covered her mouth, eyes glassy. Green's head whipped toward the voice, panic flickering in her eyes. Trump didn't turn. The woman's hands shook. She held a crumpled photo worn at the corners, folded and unfolded too many times. "That was her on Epstein's lap," she said louder now. "She was in that dress. She left that night, and we never saw her again." Silence swallowed the chamber. Even the press didn't reach for phones. No one moved. Jasmine rose from her seat without a word. No dramatics, no permission, just purposeful motion. Her heels echoed softly on the marble as she crossed the floor. Not toward Trump, but toward the woman in the gallery. As she approached, the woman's lips trembled. Looking ready to collapse, Jasmine reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a single folded tissue. Not symbolic, it was real. She handed it gently, eyes never leaving hers. "You are not alone," Jasmine said then. Lean closer, voice, low, steady. "And we're not done," the woman nodded. Clutching the tissue like a lifeline, someone in the gallery began to cry. Reporters scribbled furiously. "Heads down now." One whispered into a live mic that a witness just identified her missing sister from the Crouters. Footage: "This hearing has changed everything." The camera feed cut briefly to black, then returned. Nothing could clean this up now. The chairman's gavel hovered but didn't fall. Trump's face was blank. Hollow. A man staring at the ghost of a lie too big to bury. Jasmine didn't return to her seat immediately. She stood a moment beside the woman, not as a politician but a human shield. She turned slightly, looking at the gallery, then the cameras. Her voice cool but unshakable. She was 17. She didn't vote, didn't run for office, didn't stand behind a podium. But she mattered. Then she walked back slowly, deliberately, as if each step was for the names forgotten. If this is just one sister, how many are still silent? Asterisk, asterisk. The woman's revelation inspired another voice from the crowd. A second sister claiming her sibling was in the background of the tape, her disappearance tied to the same night. How many families have been shattered by this secret? Asterisk, asterisk. As Jasmine returned to her seat, another woman rose, tears streaming, holding a faded photo of her own missing sister. She was there too, in the shadows, lured by promises of modeling fame. The gallery transformed into a chorus of grief, with more survivors standing, their stories pouring out like a dam breaking. Jasmine listened, her resolve stealing. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was a tribunal for the forgotten, each testimony adding weight to the case against Trump and his network. And as the sister's cry faded, the Epstein aide stepped forward, his briefcase opening to reveal documents that tied Trump to payments, silencing more victims. How deep did the web go? Asterisk, asterisk. The aide, voice gaining strength from the woman's courage, laid out stacks of redacted bank statements on a nearby table, his hands trembling but his words firm. These transfers, he explained, went from Trump's shell companies to Epstein's accounts earmarked for model recruitment that was code for something far sinister. The room gasped as projections flashed the numbers, hundreds of thousands funneled quietly. With notes referencing discretion fees for girls like the one in the tape, Green tried to interrupt, shouting objections, but the chairman overruled the momentum. Now irreversible. Jasmine watched, her expression unchanging, but inside she knew this was the turning point. The evidence wasn't just visual, it was financial, traceable, indictable. The documents included emails from Trump's lawyers negotiating hush money, but one name stood out, a current senator who had co-signed the payments. Would this drag the entire party down? Asterisk, asterisk. The aide highlighted a signature on one transfer, a prominent senator, an ally of Trump, who had facilitated the funds to keep the angels quiet. Murmurs turned to shouts, the senator in question absent, but now under the spotlight, his firm sought, office flooded with calls for resignation. Jasmine pressed the advantage, calling for immediate subpoenas, turning the hearing into a domino effect that threatened to topple the GOP's power structure. When the gavel struck to recess, Trump's team surged like a breached dam. But what awaited them outside? Asterisk, asterisk. When the gavel struck to recess, Trump's team moved like a breached dam. Suits flying, phones pressed to ears, voices rising behind clenched teeth. Two aides grabbed his briefcase. One snatched his coat, and Marjorie Taylor Greene stormed ahead like a general in retreat. Get a release out. Blame the deepfakes. Now she barked, already typing furiously into her phone. Fingers shaking, Trump didn't speak. He walked fast, head down like a ghost, chased by his own face on a screen. Behind them, the hearing room stayed still. Cool, tense eyes, lingering on the door, slammed shut behind power. Jasmine remained seated, surrounded by the storm she summoned, untouched by its fury. Her notes spread neatly before her pen, uncapped but unused. She wasn't celebrating, she was preparing. What they'd just seen was only the surface. She hadn't touched the documents in the sealed envelope outside the Capitol. Reporters crowded barricades like moths drawn to something burning. Microphones shoved toward every person exiting. Did you see the tape? Do you believe her now? Is this the end for him? Green shoved past, muttering about CGI digital manipulation. Hollywood tricks? It's a lie. It's always been a lie. Her voice cracked as she said it. Inside Fox News headquarters, panic had a different flavor. The control room lit up with alerts. Segment producers screamed over headsets. Cut to B-roll. Pull back to commercial. But it was too late. Viewers had clipped it, posted it, shared it. Number Epstein Trump tape exploded on X, then Instagram, then Facebook. No algorithm could outrun it. The footage was everywhere, and in every repost, Jasmine's face froze on screen like a statue carved from resolve. A host tried to spin it. We're reviewing the authenticity of the footage. There's reason to believe this is part of a coordinated smear. But as she spoke, her producers replaced her with a breaking news. Chiron GOP witness identifies missing sister in Trump Epstein tape. Jasmine stood collecting her papers with quiet precision. Her staff leaned in, whispering about press requests, DOJ requests, network requests. She raised a hand. We're not answering yet, she said. We're listening. An aide blinked, listening. To who? She looked toward the gallery, the spot where the woman stood, where silence broke, where history shifted. To them, she said, the people who never had a mic before today. In the hallway, a cameraman caught Trump snapping at a reporter. It's not real. None of it. She'll regret this. But his voice, cracked mid-sentence, lost under the roar of the press. Clicks of shutters, chants echoing from the Capitol steps. Jasmine stayed behind, not to rest, to reload. What do you do when the broadcast can't be turned off? Asterisk, asterisk. Outside, the protests turned violent. As counter-demonstrators clashed with survivors, a brick thrown through Jasmine's office window. Was this the beginning of a larger backlash? Asterisk, asterisk. The chants grew louder, but so did the opposition, with pro-Trump groups infiltrating the crowd, shouting slurs and pushing against barriers. A brick shattered Jasmine's office window, scrawled with traitor, forcing an EPAM, evacuation and heightening security. Jasmine from inside the chamber watched on a monitor, her face hardening. This wasn't just words, it was war, and she was ready to fight back with more revelations. As the recess dragged on, whispers of a leak spread. Someone in Trump's camp had tried to tamper with the USB before the hearing. Who was the mole, and what else had they hidden? Asterisk, asterisk. During the break, Jasmine's phone buzzed with an urgent message from her chief of staff, a whistleblower inside Trump's legal team, confessed to attempting to swap the USB with a fake one overnight, but the plan failed when security caught a suspicious figure lurking near her office. The revelation added fuel to the fire, with Raskin demanding an immediate investigation into tampering the room. Already electric buzz with accusations, Trump's lawyers denying everything while sweat beaded on their foreheads. Jasmine, ever composed, used the time to review notes on the audio files, knowing the second half of the hearing would be even more explosive. The tamper attempt led to a dramatic arrest in the hallway, a Trump aide caught with a duplicate USB proof of obstruction that sealed their fate. What other crimes would come to light? Asterisk, asterisk. Security acting on the tip apprehended a Trump aide in the hallway, the duplicate USB found in his pocket loaded with altered footage. The arrest broadcast live sent shockwaves with calls for perjury charges against Trump himself. Jasmine, witnessing the scene, felt a surge of vindication. This was no longer about one tape. It was about systemic corruption. The chamber was quieter now, but not because tension left. It just changed form. Asterisk, asterisk. The chamber was quieter, but not because tension left. It changed form. After the video, the storm, what remained, was sharper than outrage. It was reckoning. Jasmine rose again, her voice requested, recognized by the chairman with a nod heavier than protocol. I request time to address the judiciary, she said. Not loud, not meek, just clear, like truth should sound. The room stirred as she approached the mic, notepad in hand. USB still within reach, but she didn't touch it this time. Her eyes swept the committee, pausing briefly on familiar and hostile faces. Then she began, not with fire but facts. Over the last decade, we've seen a trail one that snakes quietly through sealed donations, closed-door settlements, names scrubbed from public logs. But the pattern remains. Epstein donated 6 figures to shell packs linked to Trump properties. At least 4 NDAs tied directly to campaign contribution accounts. One woman's silence cost $180,000, less than a Mar-a-Lago gala dinner. Gasps were stifled, heads turned, pens scribbled. Across the aisle, Representative Dan Bishop looked ready to object. He didn't, he knew. I better now, Jasmine continued. We have visitor logs from Mar-a-Lago 1998 to 2002, one entry listed only as J.D. Minor, escorted by Epstein. Those records are sealed. This Congress never asked why. She looked directly at the chairman. But I am, Trump scoffed from the witness table, throwing his hands up. This is a witch hunt. You're reading garbage from conspiracy blogs. He turned to the chairman. Are we really letting this circus continue? The chairman didn't look at him. Mr. Trump, you are not recognized. You will wait. Trump slumped back, foot tapping restlessly. He was losing ground and knew it. Jasmine didn't flinch. When victims signed those NDAs, they didn't know they were signing pieces of themselves away. They were told it was the only way to survive. But the money didn't save them. It silenced them. And the people who took those checks, who wrote them, walked away in tuxedos and power. The screens. Behind her flashed sealed court docket numbers, redacted lines. PAC transfers. Trump's name wasn't on every page, but his shadow was. She stepped back from the podium, let the silence hang. Let it settle into every camera lens and conscience. Either this Congress cares about victims, she said slowly, or it only cares when the cameras are off. Dead quiet, even Green didn't move. Representative Jaime Raskin leaned forward, hands, steepled eyes locked on Jasmine, like she'd carved something permanent. Into the record, a CNN producer whispered into a headset, "We're not cutting away. Keep the feed live. This is history." Jasmine exhaled once, not from exhaustion but release. She had more, much more. But she knew when to stop just before the truth became unbearable. She returned to her seat, not finished, just resetting. Can a woman with one USB hold the line against decades of silence? Asterisk, asterisk. With the facts laid bare, Jasmine paused, but the room sensed more. Coming a ledger of names that could implicate not just Trump, but his entire circle. Who else was on the list? Asterisk, asterisk. Jasmine flipped to a new page in her folder, her voice steady as she revealed excerpts from Epstein's Black Book, cross-referenced with Trump's donor lists. Names of powerful allies appeared, politicians, businessmen even, celebrities who had attended similar events, their signatures matching those on NDAs. The chamber erupted in chaos, Jordan slamming his fist on the table, demanding the source, but Jasmine held up the authenticated documents, her eyes locking on Trump. This isn't just about one man. It's about a network that protected predators for years. The implication hung heavy. If Trump fell, he wouldn't fall alone. The ledger included coded entries for special guests at Mar-a-Lago, linking current cabinet members to the events. Would this spark a mass resignation wave? Asterisk. Asterisk. As the name scrolled on the screen, a hush fell, broken by a senator bolting from the room, phone in hand, likely warning the implicated. Jasmine pressed on, detailing how these guests had benefited from Epstein's services, with emails showing quid pro quo deals for political favors. The hearing transformed into a courtroom, with Raskin proposing immediate ethics probes, the air thick with the scent of impending downfall for Trump's entire political propson machine. She didn't raise her voice when she returned to the podium. She didn't need to. Asterisk. Asterisk. She didn't raise her voice when she returned to the podium. She didn't need to. Now silence followed her like a shadow, heavy, expectant, afraid. She opened a manila folder labeled Bankruptcy Court File, Epstein Estate, 2001, sealed. The air shifted, not just in the room but across the nation. Something invisible cracked beneath the desk behind the cameras. Under the weight of years in names and ledgers never meant to be read aloud, Donald Trump's eyes lost focus. His fingers no longer fidgeted. They gripped the table's edge like a man holding the last lie that still listened. Then he stood. No cue, no warning, just rage under skin too tight to contain. His chair scraped back violently, the sound screeching through the chamber like metal on bone. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Phones tilted. Security straightened but didn't stop him. They knew this wasn't escape. It was surrender in motion. "I'm done," Trump growled, voice brittle and breaking. "This is beneath the presidency, beneath this country." His lawyer tried to intercept, to hold him back with one last legal whisper, but he shrugged it off like a fly. Marjorie Taylor Greene called after him. "Don't give them the win." But he was already pushing open the side door, stepping into the hallway as if he could outrun the screen frozen behind him. On that screen, the guest book, his signature. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't glance back. She didn't even smirk. She stood and walked to the broke chamber center, calm, deliberate, then turned not to the committee, not the chairman, but directly to the live camera feeding the nation, her voice low, unwavering. "He may leave this room, but he won't leave this moment." The words landed like a gavel, louder than any judge could swing. Outside, the press swarmed the hallway. Flashbulbs like lightning. Trump moved through it like a man pulled, not walking, jaw clenched, eyes forward, hands fisted. But through the noise, the chants, the scrambling media circus. A single sentence from inside the chamber bled through every screen, every feed, every live stream across the country. "He won't leave this moment." The clip was clipped, reposted, transcribed, captioned in. All caps shared by survivors, stitched into speeches. The truth wasn't in the exit, it was in the echo. Back inside, Jasmine returned to her seat. She didn't look satisfied, she looked resolute. Trump's walkout wasn't power, it was panic. It's what happens when lies no longer recognize their maker. And the people watching, they weren't asking where he went, they were asking why he ran. Will the nation follow the man or the mirror he refused to look into? Asterisk. Asterisk. In the aftermath of the walkout, a frantic call from Trump's inner circle leaked to the press, revealing desperation to discredit Jasmine. But what if it backfired spectacularly? Asterisk. Asterisk. As Trump vanished down the hallway, his phone rang with calls from panicked donors, one of whom accidentally left a voicemail that went viral. "We need to bury this before more names come out, yours included." The leak, traced to a disgruntled staffer, amplified the scandal, with social media ablaze and calls for full transparency flooding congressional lines. Jasmine, hearing the news, allowed a rare smile. The web was unraveling faster than she'd anticipated, drawing in allies like Raskin, who vowed to subpoena every contact in Epstein's book. The leaked call mentioned a cleanup crew tasked with destroying evidence leading to FBI raids on Trump properties that night. What treasures would they uncover in the hidden safes? Asterisk. Asterisk. FBI agents stormed Mar-a-Lago under cover of darkness, prying open safes to find stacks of NDAs, photos and ledgers mirroring those Jasmine had revealed. The raids, broadcast live, showed agents carting out boxes with one photo, leaking online, a young girl's diary detailing her encounters. Naming Trump explicitly, the nation watched in horror. the scandal evolving from political drama to criminal saga. By morning, the streets were no longer quiet. Asterisk, asterisk. By morning, the streets weren't quiet. Across D.C., outside federal buildings, courthouses, news stations, crowds gathered. Some wore black, others held signs, but all carried one phrase in red across cardboard, across T-shirts, across their chests. She showed us the tape. It spread faster than any press release. Survivors from California to Georgia marched in silence. Fists raised tape across mouths until they reached cameras. Then they peeled, laugh it off. A woman stood on the Capitol steps, voice cracking through a megaphone. They told us to forget, but she made them remember. Online, the internet caught fire. She showed us the tape trended in 32 states within hours. Cable anchors struggled to keep up. Late-night shows swapped comedy for commentary. Jasmine's name wasn't just news. It was in poems, songs, in the fists of daughters seeing themselves for the first time in someone who wouldn't blink. But for every tribute came a threat. Jasmine's inbox flooded with emails. No subject lines, just coordinates. Envelopes with no return addresses, just bullet casings, voicemails whispering, "We're coming." Her security team tripled. Capitol Police offered round-the-clock surveillance. She refused the escort. She didn't want fear following her into every room, but fear found her mother. The phone rang past midnight, the voice on the other end raw with worry. "Are you safe?" "Baby," her mother asked. "You're all over the news. They've got you in their crosshairs." Jasmine stood at her window, watching protesters below chant her name like a war cry in a prayer. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She said softly, "Not yet, but I'm louder than their silence now." That silence, once used as a weapon, was crumbling. It couldn't hold against the noise she'd unleashed. It couldn't muffle the voices now, shouting beside hers. Victims stepped forward state after state. Sheltered NDAs were reopened. Law students analyzed bankruptcy filings like gospel. And somewhere in the Department of Justice, sealed records shook under subpoenas they could no longer ignore. The storm she'd stirred wasn't political. It was personal. And it was everywhere. An MSNBC anchor said it best that evening. What Jasmine Crockett has done isn't just show a tape. She's forced America to stare at its own reflection and ask what it's willing to deny to stay comfortable. Jasmine turned off her office lights, still awake, still moving. Her body ached, her voice raw, but her resolve sharper than ever. She wasn't afraid of the noise. She had become the noise. What is the cost of courage in a nation that fears its own truth? Asterisk, asterisk. Yet amid the chants, a shadowy figure lurked in the crowd, sent by those desperate to silence Jasmine forever. Would the threats turn deadly? Asterisk, asterisk. As the protests swelled, Jasmine's security detail spotted a suspicious man in the crowd, phone in hand, filming her window with too much intent. Later that night, her office received an anonymous tip a hit had been ordered by anonymous donors tied to Trump's circle, a desperate bid to stop the momentum. Jasmine, undeterred, doubled down, calling for round-the-clock protection, not for herself, but for the survivors stepping forward, turning fear into fuel for the fight. The threat materialized in a chilling way, a poison letter delivered to her desk, forcing an evacuation and chemical analysis that traced it back to a known Trump fixer. Christ, how close had she come to the end? Asterisk, asterisk. The letter, laced with a rare toxin, was intercepted by an alert staffer, but the scare sent Jasmine into hiding for a night, reflecting on her grandmother's lessons of resilience. Emerging stronger, she used the incident in her next statement, rallying support and prompting federal protection, transforming personal danger into public outrage against the cover-up. The chamber was packed history, pressing against every wall. Asterisk, asterisk. The chamber was packed history, pressing against every wall. The vote was called. The air held its breath as the roll was read, name by name, each louder than the last. 7-4 against. The final gavel didn't just fall. It landed like a verdict. The Oversight Committee by majority recommended a full federal investigation into Donald Trump's financial ties to Jeffrey Epstein. It was official within the hour. The Department of Justice issued a statement. A preliminary inquiry would begin into campaign finance irregularities, sealed NDAs and potential witness, tampering spanning 2 decades. No names cleared, no dates off. Limits. Everything Jasmine exposed was under the microscope of federal law. The media roared outside, shoving mics into every open hand, every silent mouth. Flashes strobed through the Capitol hallway, like lightning trapped in marble. Cameramen shouted. Anchors rushed to position. Where's Crockett? Is she giving a statement? Will she speak? Tonight. She didn't. She said nothing. She just walked. Jasmine stepped out of the chamber coat over one-arm bag, slung low heels, striking marble. Not with pride, but precision. Rain began. The kind that didn't, Port whispered. Cold straight, unrelenting. The kind reminding Washington had no seasons, just weather-mirroring mood. No umbrella, no entourage, just her and the storm. An aide caught up holding a phone. CNN wants you at 9. Rachel Maddow offered the closing segment. Even Colbert's team. Jasmine raised a hand gently. The aide stopped talking. This wasn't a moment for celebration. It was a moment to let the noise pass behind her. The Capitol glowed gold against the gray sky, but she didn't look back. She didn't wave. She didn't gesture to cameras. Because applause didn't matter, it was the ground shifted beneath power's feet quietly. Forever. Someone shouted her name from the barricades. She kept walking because the vote was done. The machine had moved. And now the truth had its own legal momentum. Inside the hearing room, lawmakers argued, again, talking points written spin, machines heating up. But outside, in the hush of rainfall, and the footsteps of a woman who never needed permission, something deeper stirred. No press release could frame it. No counter-narrative could swallow it. And no one, not even a former president, could walk far enough to outrun it. Jasmine didn't leave that building as a politician tonight. She left as a fault line. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks in silence. Asterisk. Asterisk. The vote passed, but as cheers erupted, a bomb threat evacuated the building, planted by extremists loyal to Trump. It forced Jasmine into a high-stakes standoff with authorities. Would this stop the investigation? The threat, called in anonymously, cleared the Capitol with bomb squads sweeping every room, while Jasmine waited in a secure location coordinating with the FBI. The device found and disarmed bore fingerprints linking it to a far-right group funded by Trump's PACs, adding terrorism charges to the growing list. Jasmine emerged from the crisis more determined her speech. The next day, galvanizing the nation against the violence spawned by silence. The request came quietly, not through a news anchor or congressional aide. Asterisk, asterisk. The request came quietly through a folded note handed by a security officer. No press, no camera, just a line in shaky blue ink. The woman from the gallery wants to see you. Just you. Jasmine read it once, folded it back, nodded. Some meetings didn't need scheduling. They met in a Capitol side room, bare walls, low lights. The woman was seated, a thin manila envelope in her lap, hands clenched like it might break if she let go. Her face pale, lips chapped, eyes rimmed with grief that never truly left. But when she looked at Jasmine, she didn't flinch. She looked like someone who'd waited years to speak and no longer needed words. Jasmine didn't sit right away. She stepped forward, stood beside the woman in silence. Not hesitation, reverence. She knew the weight of what lay in that envelope. The woman opened it slowly, slid a single photo across the table. A girl, maybe, 17, long dark hair, crooked smile. Eyes lit with trust time hadn't yet betrayed. She wore a white dress with lace shoulders, the kind worn for something important or sold as important. She was mine, the woman said softly. That's Adrian. The name cut the air in two. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't ask what happened. She knew enough. What mattered now wasn't the file. It was the face. A face that became a footnote in sealed courtrooms. A face Trump laughed beside. A face that waited decades to be named publicly. The woman's voice broke. When I saw the footage, I wasn't sure at first, but then she turned her head a little, and I knew it was her, my sister. Jasmine sat now, still no words, just presence. The woman reached across the table unsure. Jasmine met her halfway, took her hand, firm, warm, steady. Not a handshake, a bond, a promise. And in that moment, everything Jasmine endured, threats, insults, silence, found its reason. She mattered, the woman said. No one ever said that out loud, not in court, not on the news, but you. You showed the world she mattered. Jasmine blinked once. Her grip never loosened. The woman didn't cry. She'd done that years ago, but she stood taller when she left, as if a piece of her was returned. Jasmine watched her walk away, envelope clutched tightly against her chest. When the door closed, the silence left wasn't hollow. It was sacred. What happens when the story ends, but the memory begins? Asterisk, asterisk. Yet even in this private moment, Jasmine's phone vibrated with news of another survivor, ready to testify, her story mirroring Adrian's in chilling detail. How many more would come forward before the night ended? As the woman left, Jasmine's aide knocked softly, handing her a file on a new survivor. A woman who had escaped Epstein's circle but carried scars from a similar modeling event funded by Trump's associates. Her testimony included dates, names, and a matching dress description, linking Adrian's fate to a chain of disappearances. Jasmine's eyes hardened. The reckoning was far from over, and with each new voice, the pressure on Trump mounted, forcing his team into increasingly desperate measures. The new survivors file contained a letter from Adrian herself, written days before her disappearance, detailing fears of being traded like property, proof that the girls knew the danger. How would this letter change the danger narrative? The letter, yellowed with age, described Adrian's growing suspicion of the parties, naming Trump as the big boss who made her feel trapped. Jasmine read it aloud in the next session, her voice breaking for the first time, humanizing the victims and turning abstract evidence into heart-wrenching reality. The room wept, even hardened politicians, wiping tears, the letter becoming the symbol of lost innocence. The CNN studio lights weren't soft. They were surgical, clean, bright, exposing, asterisk, asterisk. The CNN studio lights weren't soft. They were surgical, clean, bright, exposing. Jasmine Crockett sat beneath them without makeup touch-ups, without a script, without an entourage. Just her, a chair, a camera, blinking. Red, no spin, no campaign, the last frame of a story refusing to be buried, the anchor's voice steady but laced with reverence. Congresswoman, after everything, the tape, the walkout, the investigation, the threats, what do you want America to remember? Jasmine looked down a moment, not to gather herself, but to choose words with the precision they deserved. Then she lifted her eyes, not to the anchor, but the lens. I want them to remember. That silence is the most dangerous power, because it protects the guilty and punishes the wounded. And the bravest thing you can do is break it. The studio didn't move, not even the crew behind the glass. Breaking it won't make you famous, she continued. It won't get you parades or safety. Sometimes it just makes you a target, but it also makes you free. And once you've tasted that truth, you never go back. The anchor cleared her throat, visibly shaken. Do you believe justice will come? Jasmine didn't answer right away. Instead, she smiled, but not soft. Quiet steel. I believe justice starts the moment someone tells the truth and doesn't flinch when the world tries to shut them up. Across the country, screens glowed in bedrooms. Diners, buses, phones buzzed, timelines flooded. Clips from her hearing played on loop. Her standing with the USB staring down Trump, whispering in the chamber after he fled. On TikTok, her quote about silence hit 2 million views in 12 hours. On Facebook, survivors stitched her voice over their own stories. Not a headline anymore. A signal. Outside the studio, protesters held signs beneath the darkening sky. She showed us the tape. Say, her name Adrian. Truth has a face now. But Jasmine didn't look out the window. She didn't need to. She'd said what she came to say. The segment ended. Cameras powered down. Staffers clapped respectfully, quietly. Jasmine stood, shook the anchors, hand left through the side exit. No press pool, no photo op, just footsteps, deliberate, unafraid, as the Capitol loomed in the distance, waiting for its next reckoning, because the noise would rise again. The spin would return. But the words she left lingered like a scar, carved into the nation's conscience. In a world of echoes, who dares to be the first voice? Asterisk. Asterisk. As the interview wrapped, Jasmine received a cryptic message from an unknown number. There's a third tape, meet me at midnight. Was it a trap or the key to ending it all? Asterisk, asterisk. Leaving the studio, Jasmine's mind raced with the message, her instincts screaming caution, but her determination pushing her forward. She arranged a secret meeting in a dimly lit park, flanked by trusted allies, where a hooded figure revealed a drive containing voice recordings of Trump discussing cleanups with Epstein. The risk paid off, adding another layer to the investigation, but not without danger. A tailing car forced her to evade through back alleys, heightening the thriller element of her fight. The third tape contained not just audio but video from a different angle, showing Trump's hand in recruiting the girls, evidence that could lead to human trafficking charges. What would the DOJ do with this? Bombshell. Playing the tape in a secure room, Jasmine heard Trump's voice directing Epstein to bring the fresh ones, his laughter chilling. Sharing it with the DOJ, she triggered immediate warrants, the scandal exploding internationally as foreign media linked it to global networks. Trump's empire crumbled with assets frozen and allies distancing themselves overnight. It began with a name spoken softly on a survivor form. Asterisk. Asterisk. It began with a name spoken softly on a survivor form, then printed on a placard, then etched into a nonprofit charter. Martha's Voice, named after Jasmine Crockett's grandmother, who taught her to hold a stare and not blink. It started with 10 survivors meeting in a Chicago church basement, then 30 in Atlanta, then hundreds across state lines. They weren't just marching, they were organizing. Martha's Voice launched a hotline, legal aid, a scholarship fund for girls silenced by the system that once tried to swallow Jasmine. They didn't build statues, they built clinics. They drafted affidavits. They found each other in the ashes and called it fireproofing. And as the movement rose from the streets, a bill was introduced in the halls that once tried to crush her. The Crockett Bill for Congressional Transparency, legislation making sealed financial records tied to congressional hearings public within 5 years. No more secret dockets, no vanishing settlements, no names erased by wire transfer. Jaime Raskin sponsored it. AOC co-wrote the language. Cory Booker delivered the floor speech. But Jasmine's name was on top, and the weight of every unheard voice beneath. She stood on the Capitol steps when it was introduced. No podium, no teleprompter, just hands folded, looking past cameras to the faces beyond. This isn't about me, she said. It's about who comes next. Behind her protest, signs changed. No longer just about the tape, the hearings, or the man who walked out. They read, "Truth needs teeth. No more sealed silence. We are not your contracts." The media tried to frame it as redemption. Jasmine refused the frame. "I don't want a redemption arc," she told a reporter. "I want a record, something the next girl can point to and say, that's why I wasn't erased." In her district back home, schoolgirls painted murals of her grandmother, gray hair, stern eyes, hands on a Bible. Beneath one phrase in gold spray paint, "Silence ends with us." CNN aired a retrospective that week, "The Woman Who Brought Down the Wall." But even the anchor admitted, it's not the wall that matters, it's what she built in its place. Jasmine didn't watch. She was on a video call with survivors in Arizona, helping draft language for a local ordinance. Suit off, sleeves rolled, voice tired but steady. The steadiness of knowing the war didn't end. It just changed shape. The Crockett Bill passed committee. The following Thursday, the nonprofit raised $2.4 million in its first 10 days, and the girl in the photo named Adrian was now honored on a national survivor registry. Can one voice become a movement? And as the bill gained traction, opposition mounted with dark money campaigns, smearing Jasmine's name, but a surprise endorsement from an unlikely ally turned the tide. Who could it be? Asterisk, asterisk. As the bill advanced, anonymous ads flooded airwaves, labeling Jasmine a radical agitator funded by shadowy PACs linked to Trump's donors. But then a former Trump insider broke ranks, publicly endorsing the bill in a viral op-ed revealing their own complicity in the silence and vowing redemption. The endorsement shifted public opinion, drawing more survivors to the cause and pressuring lawmakers to vote yes, turning what could have been a defeat into a triomphant surge. The endorsement came from Melania Trump herself, breaking her silence with a statement condemning the events, her own presence in the tape, weighing heavy a betrayal that rocked the world. What motivated her sudden turn? Melania's statement, read on live television, detailed her regret for turning a blind eye, providing insider details that corroborated Jasmine's evidence. The move split the Trump family, with public feuds erupting on social media. Further eroding his support base, Jasmine, shocked but grateful, reached out privately, forging an unexpected alliance that amplified the movement's reach to international levels. The sun began its slow descent behind the Capitol dome. Asterisk. Asterisk. The sun began its slow descent behind the Capitol dome, casting long, solemn beams across the stone. Shadows stretched over the steps like memories, some honorable, others still bleeding beneath the marble. Jasmine Crockett walked, a lone pace, steady heels, striking granite, neither hurried nor hesitant. No coat, no campaign pin, no political armor, sleeves rolled, hands bare, no aides whispering in her ear, no press trailing, no security. Shadowing, just Jasmine, and the weight of everything she refused to leave, buried. She reached the bottom of the Capitol steps and paused. The structure loomed behind, bathed in golden shadow. It looked massive, eternal, untouchable. Yet she'd touched it not with destruction but truth, not with spectacle but clarity. She'd entered through its guarded doors carrying a silver USB and left a rupture in its walls. No vote, no pundit, no backroom deal could seal. She turned slowly, letting silence settle around her like a cloak. She faced the Capitol a moment, not to revere it, but to mark it, to remind it that it was no longer just a monument. It had become a record, a ledger of pain and reckoning. Then, she turned to the camera, not with a smile, not with tears, but with the quiet defiance she carried into that hearing room the day she pressed play. He tried to erase them. We wrote them back in. Her voice didn't echo. It didn't need to. The words hung in the air like smoke. From a candle burned all the way down. Behind her, the wind picked up. A lone protest sign lay against the lower rail cardboard, soaked at the edges. Red marker, slightly smudged but legible. Say her name, Adrian. A symbol. Not of closure, but continuation. Jasmine walked forward, stepped softer now, her figure slowly swallowed by dusk. The Capitol loomed, but it no longer cast the longest shadow. She did. No security, no lights. Just her and the memory of a battle fought in daylight under oath with every eye watching. She didn't look back. She didn't need to, because the story wasn't hers alone anymore. It belonged to the girls who vanished, the women who survived, names no longer redacted by power. It belonged to those still afraid to speak, but listening now for a voice like their own. Fade to black. A final line etched across the screen in white, slow, deliberate. For every voice buried in silence, this story is for you. Jasmine didn't walk for glory. She walked to write back the names erased from history. As the sun set behind the Capitol, she didn't end a hearing. She began a reminder that a truth, once spoken aloud, never truly fades. If someone you love was once silenced, would you dare speak for them now? Asterisk. Asterisk. In the fading light, Jasmine paused, reflecting on the journey from a lone USB to a national awakening. But a final twist awaited, a call from the president offering a pardon for Trump in exchange for silence. Would she compromise or fight to the end? Asterisk. Asterisk. The call came as she walked the president's voice, pleading for unity, but Jasmine hung up her defiance unbroken. The offer leaked the next day, sparked impeachment talks, cementing her legacy as the unyielding force against corruption. The story didn't end with the sunset. It ignited a new dawn of accountability, with Jasmine at its heart, inspiring generations to speak truth to power. But as Jasmine vanished into the twilight, her phone buzzed with an urgent alert. A global network connected to Epstein was mobilizing, threatening to release fabricated evidence against her. Could this reverse the tide of justice she'd unleashed? Asterisk. Asterisk. Deep into the night, Jasmine huddled with her team, analyzing the threat-forged documents, designed to paint her as the conspirator planted by international operatives tied to Epstein's former partners. The stakes skyrocketed, with her reputation on the line, forcing a late-night strategy session where she decided to go on the offensive, leaking counter-evidence to trusted journalists. The battle shifted from the chamber to the shadows, with anonymous hackers attempting to breach her systems, only to be thwarted by a cybersecurity expert she'd recruited from the Survivors Network. Each attempt built the suspense as Jasmine narrowly escaped a digital trap that could have erased her credibility. The next morning headlines screamed of the counterattack, with her exposing the forgery ring, linking it back to Trump's overseas allies. Turning the tables and expanding the investigation internationally, protests swelled globally from London to Tokyo. Survivors uniting under Martha's Voice banners, chanting for justice that transcended borders. Jasmine, exhausted but unbreakable, addressed the world via live stream, her voice cutting through the chaos. They tried to silence us once. Now we're the echo that won't fade. The movement evolved, with petitions flooding the UN for a worldwide inquiry into trafficking networks, drawing in celebrities and world leaders who'd long stayed quiet. Back in D.C., the Crockett Bill gained bipartisan support, passing with overwhelming votes as politicians distanced themselves from the tainted names. But the threats didn't stop. A car bomb scare targeted her convoy, detonated remotely but diffused in time, revealing the lengths the desperate would go. Jasmine's response was swift. A press conference where she revealed encrypted messages from the cleanup crew decoded by her team, naming high-profile enablers. The revelations triggered arrests across continents, from Wall Street financiers to European royals. The web unraveling thread by thread. In a climactic twist, a key Epstein associate turned state's evidence, providing a master ledger that listed every transaction, every victim, every cover-up. Jasmine stood at the podium as the news broke, her eyes fierce. This isn't victory. It's the beginning of healing for those we lost. The nation held its breath as indictments rolled out, Trump facing multiple charges, his empire in ruins. Yet Jasmine knew the fight continued, with copycat movements rising in other countries inspired by her unyielding stand. As months passed, the Crockett Bill became law, unsealing decades of secrets, empowering victims everywhere. Jasmine, now a symbol of resilience, toured the country, meeting survivors, her story immortalized in books and films. But in quiet moments, she visited Adrian's grave, whispering promises to the wind, ensuring no name was forgotten. The echo of that USB resonated, a reminder that one voice amplified by courage could indeed shake the world. If this story shook, you don't just scroll past asterisk asterisk. If this story shook, you don't scroll past like, share, subscribe, where erased names find their voice and silence meets its reckoning. Tap the bell, because the next story won't just expose corruption, it could help rewrite history. What moment made you stop and hold your breath? Tell us in the comments, because remembering isn't passive, it's power. This dramatized story is inspired by real struggles and real people. All characters and dialogue are fictionalized for commentary and education. It's not meant to defame or mislead, but to inspire reflection and civic awareness. Thanks for watching. The truth didn't end here. It's still echoing, waiting for someone brave enough to listen, and louder still,